So generally what happens, the person you are interviewing, he start telling you the story from A to Z. So now it is up to the interviewer to decide what to pick, to what extent to listen, and where to ask him to stop. So it's a very critical thing. So, you know, even if I've attended a training where they taught us how to, you know, conduct interviews starting from the entering of the person in your room, eye contacts, their posture, their steps, everything speaks about his character.
What about lie detectors?
Yeah. So you know, we just, no doubt, we are chartered accountants, we are experts, but at the same time, as far as investigations are concerned, we need to learn more to make it fruitful. Yeah. Yeah, please.
The question is that obviously, as the world is advancing, and obviously this forensic science, computer forensics especially, has evolved in the last few years, and we are all picking up these things. Should we not include in the syllabus of chartered accountants some basics about forensics?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a good idea.
So perhaps I think
Especially,
that
yeah.
should be the way forward, but at least the chartered accountants should be aware of some basics.
Yes,
you know.
That's true.
Obviously, we will not make them specialists, but at least they should know.
Basic.
So this is the point for the, I don't know, do we have any council members here or yeah?
I would just want to add that in 2006 that I could relate to him that Sri Lanka is 10 years ahead of us. Because as we are discussing it in the institute, they have actually... I was in Sri Lanka a year back, and they have started this particular course 2 years back. The forensic accounting course by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. So it's doable. It's doable, and reference can
This should be one recommendation from
Yes.
today's session to the
Yes.
council that you know, syllabus needs to be updated to include this.
Yeah.
I think just want to add what Tala said. You know that it's very important for our chartered accountants who normally the CFOs in the companies or company secretary, they're actually aware how to save that evidence so that it can be admissible in the court of laws, and legal hold on documents. Like in some investigation we face situations that either the laptop or the mobiles have been formatted, or in some situations the video which was supposed to be saved of that particular misappropriation was deleted after 15 days. So I think at least the chartered accountants need to be aware what.
So I can relate to that securing evidence is very important, and I know of an instance where a particular employee was actually there was an allegation against him about fraud, and he was asked to leave the office immediately, and they left everything in the room, all his documents, and then someone cleaned up his room, right? And then they framed charges against him, and then asked him to actually come and respond to those charges. And the investigating officer asked him a question that one of the questions was that you did not obtain quotations. He said, the quotations are on rack number 3 in my room. So everything has been cleaned up. So you did not do it in front of him, you did not log all the documents in front of him, so you did not secure the evidence. Now you are left, so his lawyer says, if you do not produce that document in 15 minutes, I am filing a defamation case against you. Now what can you do? You cannot do anything. So you have to be careful in all these, and these companies need to be trained. The top management or even the various employees need to be trained in these fraud investigation techniques of securing evidence and those kind of things. Or even if they bring us in, we need to ensure that the evidences are secured. But rightly so, you rightly pointed out that imaging of computer, don't touch the computer unless it is imaged first.
One thing more I would like to add, sorry Samuel, I think there's a lot of questions on the awareness about what is a fraud, what constitutes a fraud. That is also, I think somewhere there's a grey line in some of the people think, because they're not aware that taking stationery home, or having your brother being engaged for a particular contract, does that constitute a fraud? Or having your
personal expenses as business expenses.
So you know, a lot of thing is that sometimes you need to reinforce these things to the employees also. There's a fraud awareness program.
How fraud is defined? Fraud is like an elephant, you know, difficult to define but easier to recognize. So there people say that, you know, everybody understands what a fraud is except for the fraudster.
That is
it's not-
sometimes that's how you rationalize your fraud. You know, this is a normal practice which happens in the company. So what did I do wrong?
Right. Just few more. Generally, executives always feel excited when innovative technology is used in their organizations. But generally, they hardly realize that increased global connectivity means more exposure and greater risk. So, yeah, exactly. So, do you think that our key management people are aware of it, and they, at the time of, you know, while using technology, they also realize that there is a more exposure to their organization as well? Amir.
Yeah, as far as cyber security is concerned, people are now becoming aware of it. They are not fully aware of it. Many of the companies are working on it. Again, the top groups are working on it. But generally, if you look at the normal corporates, they are not at all aware of the cyber security and the implications of not having adequate cyber security. Even in the Middle East, in the GCC countries, we have seen that the central banks of Qatar and UAE, they have actually instituted cyber security audits of the banks as well to ensure that these banks are all in compliance with cyber security. So this is a new thing which actually is, people are getting aware of it, and many companies are actually, for example, the example of Kareem's is there. It's a very big eye-opener, I would say, that it has actually damaged the reputation of Kareem's. Their customer data was hacked because their cyber security was not adequate. So cyber security is vital because we are now operating on internet most of the time, and cyber security is still not at that stage where we need to be for all the corporates. Various corporates are at various stages of maturity in terms of cyber security.
I would just like to add something on what Amar suggested, that this cybercrime, I'm not sure is in our priority list right now. We have more, I think, cybercrime is something else.
Prevention of cybercrime, not cybercrime.
Yeah. So if you look at the recent examples of Bank of Bangladesh, they had some money stolen from the New York Reserve Bank of $81 million was stolen from them. And through the SWIFT transaction which take place, Bank of Bangladesh, Central Bank Bangladesh, they had $81 million, and the overall transaction value was around $1 billion. And the only reason they were saved by that, they saved that $19-20 million was because the person who did that transaction on SWIFT code, they spelled the foundation, you know, in the incorrect spelling, and somebody sitting in somewhere around the world in Germany found out, had a question on that, raised a query that the spelling is not right. That's why they saved $9-20 million. Otherwise, the cybercrime people, they took around $80 million from the Bangladeshi bank, which was lying in the New York Reserve Bank. So the overall concept or overall magnitude of losses which you can have in the digital world, that is very huge. Recently, there's a cryptocurrency, there's $1 billion.
Cryptocurrency is another area.
State Bank, I think, finally woke up to that situation, and recently, State Bank woke up finally to that. I think they've recently given us, they've finally given us circular. The State Bank, but the thing is true, they have done it, but right now. But I think the cryptocurrency has been there for some time. So whatever, so the issue is there.
That is an individual's private act. But that is an individual's private act. If someone is dealing in cryptocurrency, he is violating the State Bank of Pakistan regulations, as well as he is taking a risk himself. So he's taking a risk with his own money. So there's nothing one can do about it.
So is the same thing, like, you know, having a fraud response plan? What do you have what is the plan regarding cyber crimes for the banks, especially for the financial institutions? And it also depends how, like somebody, Dishan just said, you know, you also start the investigation after 1 year after the cyber crime has taken place, so there's no point doing it. So that's
motto I will simply say is that if there are in Karachi, there are 2,500 lawyers enrolled to practice. 10 will not know what cyber laws are.
That's true.
So I think what you all do is a big service to yourselves and generally for all the people who go out, because lawyers don't do any seminars. They have zero continuing legal education, zero, nothing at all. So whatever they've learned, whatever I've learned in 1984 when I was doing the bar, I am shooting the same stuff for the last 30 years, whatever I learn on the job. There's no continuing legal education. And secondly, we are not creating any kind of resource like all of you are creating. See, it's very important that when a community is not teaching itself. And my last comment is, and I'll give another example. You see, when India makes the mistake first, we always follow blindly, so you always quote India. In Delhi, if you go to a bookshop, they still have bookshops, even in digital world. And if you ask for any kind of journal or magazine, legal, whether it's electronic form or digital form subscription, or you want a hard copy subscription, they will ask you in which field you want it, whether it is, and cyber laws is one of them, whether it's property, whether it's criminal. They have 123 publications that come out either annually, biannually, monthly, weekly, 123. So you have a choice. That's one city. In the whole of Pakistan, there is zero. No publication of law, except वही PLD के अंदर हम करते ही हैं कि वो जो decision होते हैं So there is no work that goes on which is scholarly. If 123 publications are coming out, those lawyers like me and others must over there are contributing. So there's no contributing over here at all. There's nobody writes books. Nobody writes books. बल्कि वो कोई कहेगा कि भाई किताब लिख रहे हैं यार ये क्यों लिख रहे हो पढ़ेगा कौन? So that is the problem. I'm sorry I give you such a bleak picture, but that's how the legal system is here now.
But I think one thing that our legislature has done is that they have passed this electronic transactions ordinance. I don't know how many people have read it though, and what is the state of practice, but we have, I think, a law on the statute. Digital signatures, and also it talks about what are the, what are the crimes it defines and the punishments, etc. But I think what is required, this is a separate huge subject. The risk of cyber crime, I think, is huge in our system.
And we need proper deliberation on
it. It requires a separate, Abdurrab, I think it requires a separate discussion and seminar.
Right. Tahir, before we move to the audience, this last question. More reliance is placed on most trustworthy employees, and it is experienced that major frauds are committed by the most trustworthy employees. Are our businessmen aware of this one?
I think this is the major instances I have seen. Normally the people who are under most level of trust, they do the frauds because they are of course aware of the overall process, and the management relies on them a lot, and there normally no segregation of duties issues there, so the chances of fraud are high. They have the opportunity, like if you look at the fraud triangle, they are with the management, so they have, and they might have some internal pressures, they might have debt or something else, or they have an opportunity because they don't have any controls over them, and the management is too much relying on them. And they can rationalize it, that if my owner takes so much money and he's such a good lifestyle, why shouldn't I have it?
Yeah.
So they have all the three things in the fraud triangle. So they're more likely to do the fraud because they can actually override the controls which are there. So that is one of the main reasons they are able to execute those frauds.
There was a case study on this actually we did in one of the large banks when we were doing this training on frauds. We developed this case study based on the real fraud cases, and in this large bank in, I think it was Multan branch or something, there was the multiple frauds were committed by one gentleman who was the most considered very dedicated person, the person who would help everybody, whoever is in trouble, very competent in his work, and he was the blue-eyed boy of the branch manager, the vice president, or even the zonal manager. So what happened was that he committed the first fraud, and he used to take out from some money, transfer it to other accounts of his dormant accounts, and as a result, there was no reconciliation of this multinational account books, their accounts. So they complained, but every time the complaint would come, the boss would say that since this guy is handling, I have no problem. He can't do this, So, and when it was identified there was some problem, then this guy was protected, then he was transferred to another section, and then he, stole the prize bonds, etc., etc. But again, then the bosses, the zonal manager said that, the complaint from the multinationals and other people, but, he carried on at least 7 or 8 frauds, and for years he was doing, but nobody would believe that this guy can do the fraud. So you see, that is one of the typical kind of thing that sometimes a person who is considered very honest, very helpful, very competent, turns out to be a fraudster.
Yeah, that's true.
In one example of my audit of a bank, many years back, one of the multinational banks, manager in one of the branches in North, son of a very influential person, committed a huge fraud and got away with it. The bank's management could not do anything about it. And at the end of the day, they wrapped up their operations in Pakistan and went away. So this is what...
Yeah.
I just want to, you had asked me the question, I got carried away in that cyber crime one. So yes, we do have laws, very serious laws of cyber crimes, because the commission of a crime through a computer, we have hacking laws, we have laws for copyright infringement, we have laws for pornography, we have laws for financial theft. But at the end of the day, lawyers must know how to use a computer. तो हमारे यहाँ तो कोर्ट में आप जाएं तो कभी आप कोर्ट में जाएं तो वो होता ही है, वो जज यूं करता है, लिखें जी, उसे नहीं पता कंप्यूटर कैसे चलता है.
Right. Thank you very much. Questions from the audience, please.
I know there's a silent code that speakers are not supposed to. Yes, I have 2 comments. Yes, I have 2 comments. One comment related to the discussion on cybercrime, because when I was having this discussion with the banking professionals, what they said was that there are very good laws on financial crime and cybercrime, but the judges that are hearing those laws are not well equipped to actually understand what the offense has taken place. So that was the impression of the compliance head of that organization, that he does not know a difference between software and hardware. And in connection with the impression that people have that the fraudsters are well trusted people, there's actually empirical evidence to support that fact. The ACFE's report to the nation that surveyed 100+ countries, it says that this is the profile of the fraudster, that these are the most hardworking people, rarely take a day off, and they have other characteristics as well. This did not sit well when I was giving a session in Multan, that people have association of 25+ with their companies, and this was the profile of the fraudster. So this does not sit well with the seasoned professionals, but that unfortunately is the case.
Yeah, in fact, in that report, it is also mentioned that generally fraudsters are not professionals at the beginning. They start with an accident or incident, sometimes what happens, they did some mistake and they try to cover it up, and when they find that nobody catch them, then they start doing it.
A typical, I think, fraudster is one who will never take leave. He will work very hard, never take leave.
Never take leaves.
So one of the best controls, that is why, is the rotation and mandatory leave to control the fraud.
My question is to Mahmood Saab. Mahmood Saab, you mentioned that economic crime bills and cybersecurity law has been passed, but there was a draft about Data Protection Act. I mean, it came and it never see the light of the tunnel, because as Amir Saab mentioned, in Kareem's case, what happened was that the data of individuals was lost. If there was certain Data Protection Act, then certain telecom, certain banks, they would take our data much more seriously than they do it now. So do you have any update? I mean, is there something which is happening? Because in all of the countries, including India and Europe, the Data Protection Acts are there, which protects our privacy, our data, which is with all these institutions with whom we are dealing with.
So I think right now you can only rely on those individual laws that protect data. There is still not an overarching law here. You just have to rely on specific laws that create confidentiality, create data protection, but that overarching law is still not there. I don't know when it will come. Yeah, it's still a draft.
You don't realize that in today's age, as we are progressing, data is precious, data is money, but that, I think, realization is still not there. I mean, what happened in the case of Facebook proceedings, even there, even in the Western countries, the realization is still coming. So, data is the most precious thing today, and yes, I agree. I think there has to be some data protection legislation.
Case that you must have read about, this question was raised about bank confidentiality of customers. So, and certain provisions were cited that all this information is confidential to the court. So the court said, no, we are the court, so give it to us in a printed form in a sealed envelope. Now, so if the courts are doing this, then what do you do? I mean, printed form in a sealed envelope. The next day you'll find it on Geo television.
My question is that one of the panelists identified that most of the frauds are reported by whistleblowers. The question is that there are no legal protection available to those whistleblowers. I mean, the Code of Corporate Governance has guided the Board of Directors to draft and approve a policy, but there is no legal protection available to the whistleblowers. So how can we encourage people to come forward and report fraud?
I think the whistleblowers do have this option of reporting some of these actually complaints through anonymous means as well. So they have that protection. Obviously, you're right that, but internationally, globally, whenever there is any whistleblower situation, you are legally protected. If it is an anonymous whistleblowing complaint, the company is prohibited from finding out the identity of that particular person and also to take any retaliatory action against that particular whistleblower as well. So internationally there are protections. I'm not sure about the local laws as to what the
local law also.
Yeah.
Obviously, in banking sector, I think banks are required to do this. Even the Code of Corporate Governance requires a policy on whistleblowing. That is not very specific, but banks, I think it is specifically required to protect the whistleblower. In our law, under NAB law, it is the whistleblower is protected. They have this policy of protecting, and in fact, at one time they used to reward the whistleblower. Still, I think, but that they have not discontinued. It's not being effectively implemented. But the NAB law says their procedures say that they will protect the whistleblower.
मेरे ख्याल में से एक लॉ था नेशनल असेंबली ने पास किया था, महमूद साहब उसको क्लियर कर पाएंगे कि पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट डिस्क्लोजर का लॉ था जिसमें विसल ब्लोअर की प्रोटेक्शन की पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से पब्लिक सेक्टर के लिए था. अब एससीसीबी ने भी एक विसल ब्लोअर के लिए एक प्रोटेक्शन के लिए लॉ बनाया था, वो ड्राफ्ट स्टेज में है और मैंने जो लास्ट नॉलेज दिया था अभी तक ड्राफ्ट है उसको डेफर कर दिया है एससीसीबी ने. कंपनीज के लिए लाए थे कि वहाँ पे एम्प्लॉयज़ की प्रोटेक्शन के लिए, लेकिन दैट हैज़ बीन डेफर्ड.
think if there are no more.
This has to be a
mentioned about you mentioned about this situation with Pakistan and the other countries in the region, right? Fine, one was aware that we are behind, but for example, Nepal, right, and countries like Bangladesh and others. Now, what should we be doing? Because I don't think this is the way that we can continue. What they did to reach to this level, I mean, was the profession strong? What was happening? And, you know, there has to be, see, we just can't say that we are going to be years behind and nothing is going to happen. What is the way out? Who should be taking the initiative? That's the whole question, isn't it? At the end of the day, I mean, unless we say, oh, no, chalne do aise.
So I think in our profession, it's very clear that there are 3 areas, and those leaders there, if one of them comes in every time and takes a little bit of initiative, and it doesn't take a lot. So the judiciary would be the Chief Justice, the legal profession would be the presidents of the provincial bars, and the legal education would be the Vice Chancellor and the principals. All of them are so guilty, and we are all part of it. So we are part of that. So we have seen repeatedly over the years that no reformist comes in. You know, it's always grandstanding, but no reformist comes in any of these 3 disciplines. And whenever the reformist comes in, you will see the change coming in. What you see in those countries are reforms. When the president comes in of a bar association, his agenda is very different. As I said, we never have a seminar, we never learn. Their agendas are very different. Their outlooks are very different. They are not into grandstanding or, you know, making news every day, not at all.
I think if there are no more questions, we conclude. One question. This is the last question that we're going to take. So this is the last question, please. Mic over there. Can we have the mic over there, please?
अस्सलाम वालेकुम एक्चुअली अभी वी आर कंप्लेनिंग अबाउट द गवर्नमेंट कि भाई हमारी गवर्नमेंट या लेजिस्लेटिव सिस्टम जो है वो इन चीज़ों के लिए काम नहीं कर रहा. ओके फाइन, फेयर इनफ, बट इज़ इट पॉसिबल दैट ICAP फॉर इट्स मेंबर क्रिएट सम अवेयरनेस फॉर फ्रॉड इन्वेस्टिगेशंस और सम फ्रॉड केस स्टडीज, not disclosing the name of the company, so that we study that material. It could be the part of CPD like that कि भाई mandatory आपने fraud के ऊपर पढ़ना है या something like that. Can we do it on ICAP level for members?
I think it should be done. Very good suggestion. I had that in my mind also to raise this. But the point is to expect that from ICAP. You know, it's very easy to demand that. It should be done. But ICAP is not really an investigating agency. You know, ICAP is a regulator of accounting profession. There are a lot of things that ICAP needs to do before that, but somebody needs to do that. I think these case studies, in fact, we should have one perhaps seminar where we should invite people from NAB. It is part of NAB's responsibility to develop an anti-corruption strategy. It is, I think, NAB should develop the case studies and create awareness. It is their one of the essential responsibilities. And of course, we can contribute to support that. ICAP can support that process, facilitate that, arrange seminars, etc., etc. But to, you know, develop case studies and invest in that kind of a research, ideally, we can say that it should, but it will be difficult. I don't think the council and the institute will be able to give that priority. This is my view.
Thank you. With this, we conclude our session. Would like to thank the participants, the speakers and the panelists for their active participation and for asking the questions in detail and for the detailed presentations. And now it's time for the memento distribution. For that, I would like to request Mr. Hussain Basrai, past president, ICAP and the council member, to do the honors. Basrai sir, please. The first memento to Mr. Tala Shahid. Second to Mr. Zishan Shahid. Sayyid Asad Ali Shah. Yeah. Now, Mr. Amir Jamil Abbasi. And Mr. Mahmood Mandiwala. Thank you, Mahmood Sahab. Mr. Sharik Zaidi. So, thank you very much. With this, we conclude our session. So, the dinner is ready. Please join us for the same. So,